Good day, everyone. I'm your IELTS tutor, Jack, and welcome to another episode of the IELTS Plus English podcast. Today's episode is the hardest so far. I can tell you that for sure. It's one you probably won't even get it in the IELTS exam, but that's a very key point today that we'll talk about a little bit later. Today's topic is economy. If you want to learn more about the economy, go to www.jax-english.com to get your free episode handout, your podcast handout, where you can get today's questions and 10 vocabulary and expressions connected to the topic. Let me give you an introduction to sort of give you an idea of what this episode is about. The IELTS exam, it is hard. We all know that. But there are some questions that you'll find on the internet. There are some topics that you'll find on the internet that are harder than you're going to find in the exam. And today's a great example. The questions that come up today they're almost certainly not going to come up. But it's the hardest case, which is great because if you prepare for the worst, then the reality is going to feel easier. So that's what we're going to try and learn today is how do we deal with the hardest questions? Before I start, this is the lesson I want to give you. If you get a super hard topic, a super hard question, bring it into your world. Don't worry too much about whether you're directly answering the question. The examiner wants to hear your English. If you go slightly off and down another direction with your answer, which is easier for you, that's absolutely fine. So, question 1 of part 1. What do most people do in your city? In my city, there's a huge variety of jobs. I live in Seoul, which is a capital city. But I would say there are a lot of teachers, a lot of office workers, which could be for a variety of types of companies. And, there's a lot of people working in entertainment. So, to be honest, there's just a huge variety of jobs and it's difficult to even categorize. Let's go straight on to another one. I'm quite happy with that answer. That's not really economics, but an easy question. The next one. Do you read or watch news about the economy? No, I don't. I don't really find the economy very interesting. There are a lot of topics that I do find interesting, which I read about daily. Personal finance, for example, which is somewhat connected to the economy. But the economy itself, talking about capitalism, globalization, recessions, growth, I don't find very interesting. Okay, I sneaked some keywords in there. Capitalism, globalization, recession. Those are some keywords today. Very easily to kind of put that in that answer. Let's do a part 2. And this is an awful question. It's so hard. I can see it already. I haven't prepared. But as I said, this is going to be a great example of bringing it into your world. So let's see how I do. 2 minutes is on the clock. And here's the question. Tell me about an economic event. There you go. Very hard. A simple question, but very hard to answer. So 2 minutes on the clock. Start. Hold on. Okay. Start now. I'd like to tell you about the recession we experienced last year due to the coronavirus. Last year in January, the world was hit by the coronavirus and it shut everything down. It shut businesses down. It shut tourism down. All of these very important areas of the economy were closed temporarily. And then over time, I know in Seoul, they closed permanently. Not industries, but a lot of businesses. The areas that got hit particularly were trade and education. My business is education. And although I'm surviving, as you can see now, it was a really hard time. I had to close my business temporarily, so I couldn't earn anything. And then I had to open up, but kind of semi-open, not a full schedule. And I gradually came back to normal, but it was a very challenging time. And let me tell you more about how the pandemic impacted my business. The students just had to stop coming to my academy because we had direct contact and everything had to shift online. So I could maintain something, but most students don't like doing online lessons. They like to do face-to-face, and I understand, especially as I couldn't really give a big discount. So for a long time, I just wasn't teaching much, and it took a really long time to recover. For me personally, this was probably the hardest time in my life in terms of just earning money, sort of maintaining my lifestyle. Good. Okay. Now, what did I do there? The economic event, okay, it was the recession. That's a fair answer. But I didn't talk about the overall macroeconomics because I don't know about them very well. I didn't talk about the kind of, I didn't give facts about the impact on the country or whatever. I brought it very quickly into my world, which is my business. If it's you could bring it into your world and just talk about how it influenced your study, how the pandemic influenced your lifestyle, as long as it connects to your first answer, which is the recession. That's absolutely fine. Let's do some part 3. Does economic status affect the behavior of a country's citizens? Yes, it seems to, for sure. And I'm going to talk about England because that's what that's what comes to my mind first, is that you've got the lower class and their economic status is very low. And that's where a lot of crime happens. If you go to lower class neighborhoods, you can see a lot of crime around, whether it's damage to property or there's assaults. It tends to happen in those places. Of course, this is England I'm talking about. I don't know other countries. I would assume it would be the same. Okay, not a bad answer. I'm not really getting many words in today, but again, that is the point of today's podcast. If you're uncomfortable with the topic, it's going to be harder to get the words in there, and that's fine. If you get a really hard topic, really hard questions, the most important thing is to give the examiner content. Give him or her answers. Show them your English. So show them you can tell a story. Let's do one more. Is economic progress the best way to measure a country's success? I think no, it's not the best way. I don't really know what's the best way to measure a country's success, but for me personally, happiness is the goal in life. Now, obviously, money is part of that. We need money in order to be happy. But when I look at countries that are statistically happier, for example, I think Scandinavian countries do very well, and some European countries like Germany and the Netherlands. That's what appeals to me, and that, to me, that's what's successful, or that is what success is for a country. And therefore, that's the kind of country I want to live in. So, I would say economic progress isn't the best way to define success for a country. So again, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about the economy, really. I'm bringing it into an area that I'm interested in, which is happiness. And I think that is very important. So today's episode is all about dealing with tough topics. I hope you enjoyed it, and go and check out my website, www.jax-english.com, for a free handout and other free content. Of course, there's all the episodes so far, and we are on episode 13. We're doing well. 13 out of 40. Many to go. So thank you very much for watching. Please give me a like on YouTube or like on the podcast, whatever you can do. Leave a comment, subscribe. Remember, everything I'm doing is for free. I'm trying to give you this free platform where you can really boost your IELTS. So if you could give me some feedback, that would be really great. I hope you have a wonderful week this week, as I always say, and I'll be back next week for episode 14. See you soon. Bye-bye.